Hey guys, so today we're going to do one called Mountain Range Sunset. So, first step I like to do is I like to draw out just a very basic graph that I can try and follow along. So, this is more or less what we're looking at. We got a couple of different mountain ranges, some clouds, some trees, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. One thing that you always want to do is start off in the background, do the sky first, and work your way forward. Now you have a couple of different options. For skies, you can either use a 1 inch, or I like to use the 1/2 inch, just because it gives me a little bit more control. Now this one has a very bright spot right behind one of the mountains. I'm just going to go straight into my bright yellow, and right about there, I'm just going to, in crisscross strokes, using my bright yellow, that's about there. The sun is going to be coming from the brightest, and I'm going to work my way out in these crisscross strokes until I'm running out of paint. And don't be afraid to run out of paint. That's what helps blend. When you run out of paint, it applies a much less thick coat of paint compared to when you just have paint on your brush. See how much thicker that color is versus over here? That's what you're looking for when it comes to blending. You want it to be a lot thinner of a coat. You want it to be running out. That way when you go to mix your other colors with it, it is much easier too. They blend a lot better, and especially because we're using a canvas today, this is actually a stretched canvas. You can get these really cheap at Walmart or any art supply store. Usually they come in like 2 packs. Most of the time, canvas accepts the paint. It takes the paint a little bit better, and you don't have to worry as much like with paper, it trying to bleed a little bit or it running in any way. I love canvas. It's what I started on. It has a much different texture, much different quality to it. I like the feel of it when I'm painting. Now that I've finished my yellow, I'm going to go ahead and go straight into one that's called Golden Sunset. It's a darker yellow. It's got a hint of gold, hint of reddish, orange color to it. You can really see that difference. It's a touch like a cad yellow or an Indian yellow. And I'm just going to go all the way around it. And I'm still working my way out. I'm finding a spot further away from the yellow where I want the color to be a little bit more bold. And then as my brush runs out of paint, I'm coming inwards towards the yellow. And it allows for a much easier blend, especially with using acrylics where I'm not using any form of a liquid white or a liquid clear to make all the blending a little bit easier. And feel free, if you have it, to use it. I just prefer the dry method versus the wet method. Alright. I'm going to blend these colors nice. And I'm still using the same crisscross stroke. And occasionally, I will dab it down just to get the littlest bit versus the crisscross stroke. Because when you dab it down, you're getting even less. And I'm still just using the Golden Sunset, or if you don't have a Golden Sunset, use an Indian yellow. Putting the majority of the paint up here, and then once my brush is out and it's starting to run out of paint, going back to right here to blend. And don't be afraid to get a good amount on your brush. Go slow. If you're better off with having less paint and doing multiple times of getting paint over and over again, do that. But if you can handle it, get a good amount of paint on your brush and work with it. Experience difference in having a lot of paint versus a little paint. You have to have more control, more finesse. You have to have a lighter touch sometimes, but I think it's worth it because it saves you from having to go back so many times. And like I said, especially when you're not using a liquid clear or a liquid white, you have to worry about making sure that it spreads everywhere, because with that liquid clear or that liquid white, usually it blends it, but it also liquefies it and helps it spread a little further on your canvas. Like I said, I don't really use either of those. Alright. now that we basically have it, and I'm not doing this corner yet because this corner is going to be a little bit more red, but while I still have the same brush, I haven't washed it yet, I'm going back into my bright yellow, and you can tell that some of the Cadia, or the Indian yellow, is still coming through. You can see a couple of dark streaks here and there. That's okay. That's helping it blend. Now, you just keep going over, and if you notice, another trick is, if you're noticing that you're having a hard time blending, take your brush, get it ever so slightly damp, and this is another good thing about canvas, you don't have to worry about the water ruining the page. Get your brush a little damp. It'll help re-moisten all these paints. It'll help them blend so much easier. Because, like Bob Ross always said, a thin paint sticks to a thick paint. But it does not work the other way around. Alright. Touch more of the bright yellow right here. Now, if you really want to make it look like that sun is really just beaming, you can also take a touch of the white, take a touch of bright yellow, and it'll make a very, very bright, even brighter, even lighter, and it'll just make it seem like that sun's just beaming right there, super bright. And blend it out. Just blend it out. Alright, there we go. Now, still not washing the brush. There is an importance to that. I'm going to go in to my magenta. I didn't use a straight red because I want more of a sunset look to it versus like a bright red look to it. And I'm just mixing a little bit of the bright yellow together. And I'm starting from here. And I'm letting it just run out of paint. Taking a touch of this color, coming back. And without washing the brush, it allows these colors to kind of mingle a little bit on the brush, to the point to where they will blend and create new colors a little bit easier than if you had to sit there and step by step go through and make every color blend perfectly. People think you spent a lot of time on this sky, but you really didn't. Some straight magenta right in that corner. Alright. Taking my Indian yellow in with my bright yellow and magenta mixture. And just slowly add more and more of the Indian yellow. And as you can tell, it's already starting to blend together to the point to where it doesn't look like two separate colors just sitting there, but it's actually a nice fade. And it's okay to have streaks here and there of one color or the other. It really adds to the overall look of it. Alright, we are just about there. Now that we have such a different color change right here, we're going to go back into the bright, go back into the Indian, we're just going to keep blending backwards. And I know what you're probably thinking, it doesn't make sense to do something, make it good, and then blend it back again. But it gives you that final over here to where you can blend it this way. Alright, now we are going to slightly wash the brush because right now we don't want too much of that magenta coming through because the majority of the magenta in our sky is already passed. Now we're more into the yellows. So I'm going to go straight back into my bright yellow. And I'm going to work my way this way till we have a nice, even fade across from magenta to the bright. Now, we need to worry about down here because we are going to have water in it. And right here, where our water is, we want some of the reflection of the sky. So we're going to go straight into the dark. And we're not going to worry too much about how this part looks, because water reflections aren't perfect. They aren't mirror images. They just reflect a lot of the colors that are in the sky. So we're just going to... Plus we're also going to have land here and there. We're just going to more or less get the basic idea down. Alright. Just getting my Indian yellow down. Oop. Got away from me there. Alright. If you notice, like I said before, if you notice your paint's just not quite going far enough or blending right, add just the slightest touch of water to your brush, because that really makes a huge difference. Alright, going back into the magenta over here. I'm not too worried about right here and right here. Like I said, there is going to be land. I'm more worried about just the center and going back upwards. So I'm going to go back into my Indian yellow. You get somewhat of the same fade. You don't want it too bright, too dark, too different. You want it just about the same. Touch of this bright. And another trick for that is when you're going up and down doing the sky, pull some of that color down in here as well. And it's okay if you make a little mistake like here or there. You can always go back, reblend it, and fix it. So I just clean my brush of any magenta, but it's still slightly damp. I'm just going to pull, starting from my lightest and going to my darkest, just to get rid of any brush strokes. And with a wet brush, if you go over your paints, see how I added that little bit of height, light spot right there? You can do that with a wet brush. Fixing any spots down here. A wet brush makes a huge difference, because like I said before, thick paint will stick to a thick paint. There we go, we got our sky. Now, we have to work as far back as possible forward. Clean, dry brush. We're going to go straight into our black, because it's time for us to do our mountains. So, here, we're going to have a mountain, right about here. And we're not too worried about this inside. We're more worried about the outside edge. So it doesn't matter what it looks like on the inside of our mountain. Just make sure you have a nice clean edge on the outside. I usually get this by just pulling straight down, and then get rid of any excess paint by just filling it in. Now you do want it to be mostly black in where your mountains are, because you need that dark so you can have your highlight and your shadows, and it will look more realistic. Alright, and right about here, we are going to have more of the water visible. So I'm trying not to cover up too much of this Indian yellow down here. I just want it to be enough that it will show up nicely. Alright, and we have our first mountain. Alright. Don't be afraid to get little tiny bumps here and there, because mountains aren't smooth. They only slightly look smooth from a distance. So learn that. nice balance of light, dark ratio, the highlights of the background, and then that pitch black of the mountain. Alright, now we also have some mountains coming from right here. And it's already starting to come along. If you look at it, it's already starting to look like something. So if you get to this point, let that be a little bit of an encouragement that you can do it. Because you really can. All you have to do is practice and really try and believe in yourself. The greatest painter I've ever seen said that all the time. Bob Ross always said, all you have to do is believe in yourself. And you really can. You can do anything that you attempt if you believe in yourself. Alright. And we're almost done with this set of mountains. And then from here, we also have another set. This is what will give us that nice mountain range look at this back set back here. Like I said, we're just getting the black in for now. Just trying to get that all blocked in. That way we can go back over it with our highlights and our shadows. Really make these mountains pop out. Now we have one more small mountain, and it's going to be in the front right here, coming from where this one ends and going over this one. So we already have the black here, so there's not really a point in putting it here. But it does pop up like so over. So that little tall spot is a mountain that's in front of this back set right here. Alright, now that we have our mountains mostly done, I think we got a few more small ones right here. They come out so. And when it comes to this part, you want to have less paint because you want that to really just slide through. Okay. And we've also got another spot right here. Another little landmass right here. Now at this point, depending on how exactly you are trying to make yours look, it should look mostly like that. And you can change the shape of your mountains a little bit, you can change the shape of your land masses a little bit, but try and keep at least a little bit. And see, for this landmass, what I'm doing is I'm pulling it sideways and going back. Gives that nice bank look to it. Just back and forth, allowing little tiny pieces just extruding past. Alright, but mostly it should look like this. You have your sky, you have your reflection, and that's all that you really need for now. And our mountains are mostly done. Now that we have the majority of where our mountains are going to be, we're going to go back to the sky. Because we need to add a few small clouds. Now we're not going to do a whole big sky full of clouds in this one. However, if you choose to, and you want a big sky full of clouds, what you need to do is before you do your mountains, put your clouds in there. So I'm going in to the orange, and where it's going to matter the most, I'm just taking the corner of the brush and putting in tiny little wisps with circle. You're just putting circles here and there. Nice and light and fluffy. If it's not light and fluffy, it's not going to look like a cloud. I'm just doing little circles. See, you're not going to see some of these clouds. So what I'm going to do now is, because you don't really want to mix like two different colors for the clouds, you want to try and keep it the same color, just different shades. Going into my white, going into my orange. So I have a very nice light color. And doing the same thing, just going in little circles, using the corner of my brush. I am adding highlight to these clouds in the direction of the sun. Little circles here and there. Color. I'm mostly keeping it on the bottom. Nice little circle. That's all you're looking for. And clouds are in layers, so you want to work on anything that's maybe in the background of this layer first, like this, and then go white. And the closer to the sun I'm going, the more white I'm using, just to give it a really popping look to it. You just really want that cloud to really just stand out. And that's a very nice color. I like that. And I'm just getting ever so slightly the littlest bit of white on my brush and mixing it along. And it will mix on the palette more. Same with this other cloud. Littlest bit of white. Really just let it mingle on the brush with these other colors. Swirling around. Let that orange be the most prominent color. Let that be your primary color. Back to just a touch of orange. There we go. Got a couple of really nice clouds. Now, with my other flat brush, what I like to do is just, as Bob Ross always said, 2 hairs and some air. Take fluff it up. Barely want to make any contact with it. Just enough to make it look like it's floating along. Just set that back into the sky. That's all you're doing. Okay, now we clean our brush. And now our sky is completely done. And see, that wasn't so hard. All it takes is a little bit of practice, some determination, and just believing in yourself. Alright, now let's work on our mountain range. So for this far back one, instead of using a really light or really dark color, I'm using a light color to show that it's really in that distance. So noticing where our light source is coming from, I'm just putting in the indication of some highlights here and there. And for that, I'm just getting a little bit of a, it's actually a khaki color. And dabbing down. Now notice we're still going to have our mountain right here in the front. So we don't really have to do too much more than right here. Because this front mountain will cover the majority of it. So starting from the top, dab down in a straight line. The further down you get, let that paint kind of run out a little bit. And start a different one. keeping your brush in line with how your mountain is flowing. If you don't follow the angles, it will not look right. So if you're noticing your mountains just don't quite look right, your rocks don't look right, or even your grass doesn't look right, try following the angles of how it's going to flow. There we go. Now, I have taken, it's called English Navy and some white. And I've made a very light powder bluish look to it as some shadow. So right wherever your shadows are going to be, just add a touch of this. Don't get rid of all of the dark. You want some dark in there still to really show that. Okay. And if you notice, like in my case here, I noticed that it's just a little too close to my original khaki color. It's just too light. So I took some straight English Navy and mixed it with my shadow color, just to add, there we go, a little bit darker of a color. Now, clean that brush back off. Go back into my khaki. Go over. And we don't want too much detail in these mountains because these are very far off mountains. These only exist very far away. We don't want too much detail in them. Because all that exists is right there for them. Now, as we work our way forward, I'm actually going to use more of a brown color. Now I have two choices. I have a old leather and I have a raw umber. And I feel like I want to use more of a raw umber for the simple fact it's a little bit brighter. It's got a touch of that red to it. And where we have the raw red sky, I feel like it would probably be the best. Just doing what we did before. Just dotting down. Following a mountain. Following the highlights of it. And if you notice, the brush is getting too spread out, go back to your palette and then just wipe it to the side so you get a nice thin point. And we're going to have more mountains as well. And the final thing with your mountains, I didn't do it too much in the background to show that those are in the distance, but with these ones, what you want to do is after you get some paint on them, just pull down. And let it diffuse more at the bottom. Pull down. Let it diffuse at the bottom, pull down. And the closer you get to yourself, the more you want to pull down. Just like that. Okay, now we're going to have a couple more little mountains right here. I need to put a little bit of black back in here. Okay. Wipe the brush back off. And that black that I put back in there, now that we have the majority of it, that will allow us to make it to where there's a little bit of shadow back in there. That's some fresh black, which will allow us to mix better with the brown and give a little bit of a shadow look to it. Now, we're going back to this top mountain right here. Putting some more fresh black where our mountain's going to be. I'm not going to wipe the brush off this time. I'm going to let the black and the brown mingle right here, because that will give that shadow look that we were talking about right here. Alright, now that we have this portion of our mountain done, going back into a brown, we're just going to do little strokes here and there, like so, and let it diffuse at the bottom. Now we're going to go over to our other side, that way we know what we're doing where when it comes to this middle. So we know right up the top and like I said, leaving this black adds the effect of the sunlight not grasping that part of the mountain. And it doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to make sense. So if you can see these in your mind, if you've ever seen mountains that look like that, it doesn't matter if everyone who sees your painting has seen mountains like that. If you've seen mountains that look like this, that's all that really matters. And as I'm running out of paint, it makes it to where go. Now on to these mountains, we know here is going to be seen because it's in the way of the sunlight. And boom, right into this mountain. Doing the same thing, letting the sunlight just really, and boom, into that mountain. Just like so. And there we go. Now we know we're going to have another mountain right here. Once we have all of our mountains accounted for, just let it diffuse down. Just like so. Add one more little highlight right here. Let this mountain connect it here. Let that mountain connect it here. Now, I'm going to put my brush really good. And using the same brush, corner here and there and here, I'm going to add our shadow color. And once again, that shadow color is just too bright. So I'm just going to take a straight English navy and mix it with our original shadow color. So we have a very nice shadow blue. There, that's nice. Just get the brush off. Corner. Follow your angles. Don't get rid of all the black. That black definitely helps. And I'm doing the same style of motion, just following a different angle with it. If this one went this way, I want my shadows to go more this way. Alright. And we're just adding a little bit of shadow. We're not covering up all of the black. Like I said, we're just adding slight little shadows here and there. Just something to show that there's a light amount of light, very minuscule, but it's still hitting in spots here and there. Like so. Like I said, leave a good amount of the black. It really adds that third dimension to it. If you notice that you've got too much of a shadow color, go back with the black and blend it back out. Now that we have them like that, what we're going to do, we're going to work on our landscape for that area. Just taking the same brush as we've been using, just our 1/2 inch brush. Take this to a light green. And wherever you want a grassy tone, just slightly tap. And like I said with the mountains, follow your angles. If you don't, it will not look right. You go back and forth, making sure to keep a good amount of paint on your brush. Just go back and forth. And the further back you are, the less detail you really want. You just want some grassy little areas to stand out. And then as you get closer, you want more to stand out. Leave plenty of black in there to show that that's how the ground rolls. Because, like I said before, if you don't have shadow, you can't appreciate the highlights. And now that we have our mountains done, I'm going to clean the brush thoroughly, because now it's time to work on our forward landscape. What are we going to have where? And I am going to put some trees along the line right here, and a few back here and there, to show some really distant life in the background. So we're going to take our fan brush, and you want to make sure your fan brush is thoroughly spread out. You don't want to be working with a fan brush that does not have a very good fan to it. If you have to, get it wet, and then just smooth it out like so. Try and get at least 1/2 smooth. So, what we're going to do, we're going to take the black, and in the background, and we have our fan brush coated. Here's where the fun comes in. Wherever you want some trees, just using the tip of the fan brush grow some trees. It's okay to cover up a portion of your mountain. That is perfectly fine. If you don't want to, then don't. This portion is all completely up to you, like with the shape of your mountains, how many clouds, where, and the shape of the rest of the landscape. All of that is all on you to choose what you want to see. All I'm showing you is the technique. So we're going to have a nice little tree line. Go up and down to show that there are trees of different sizes at different spots on our mountain. Go back over down here a little bit. Now, open my brush. Make sure to fan it back out after you clean it. If you don't have a good fan, it's not going to look right. So, taking this color is called Kelly Green, and just highlight certain little bits using the corner of our fan brush, not covering up all the black. And just highlight certain parts, certain trees. If you really want it to have a really thick foresty look to it, do the tops and then go in and highlight stuff on the bottom as well, and it will make it look like there are numerous amounts of trees. Just highlight like so. Keeping a good amount on your brush, because if you don't, this fresh black will mix and you won't be left with a green, you'll be left with a black on your brush. Now alright. Now, gotta kind of speed through this a little bit because my camera is dying a little bit. So like I said, I'm just going to follow along. Alright, now that I have that side, I'm just going to do the same thing over here. Allowing my brush to run out in spots like so. And then taking a touch of the Kelly Green and the black, going back over a few spots to show more of a shadow. Back into my bright green again. Adding those final little highlights here and there. now we have it this far, I believe we are done with our big brush. Now, we're nearly there. Only a few more elements and we'll be done. So going back to our black, we need to add some tall trees. We'll put one right there. So make just a simple line down, and with the corner of the brush in a zigzag motion, and pushing down the further I get to the ground, allowing more paint to be put on the canvas. It's okay that we're covering up part of a mountain. It really is. We're going to make him go all the way off of the canvas to give it the look that we're standing on something as we're looking at it. Like so. Now, we can put another one, not as big, to show perspective, right here. Go down to about there. I'm going to give him a friend right there. And then in the water, we're going to have our reflections. And then we're done with that. Now, going into our Kelly green again, we are going to highlight. Reflection. This part doesn't matter that much. Now do our big tall tree. All the way down. Alright, now taking this brush for our reflection, or either line brush will work, and pulling down and then going across. We are done. Now, time to take the white and work on our water. So I'm just taking the white and a very small liner brush and spinning it to get a nice sharp point. Nice sharp point, not too much paint on it. And starting from back here, just add the indication of little tiny water lines. Little tiny ripples in the back. Occasional little wave, a ripple. It's okay as well. going all along this bank. And it's better at this point for you to go over and have to get more paint every so often than it is to get a lot of paint and have a really thick line. The thicker the line, the less it'll actually look like a water line. It'll look more like you are trying to make river rafting waves or sideways waterfall. I can't express this enough. The thinner the line, the more it'll look accurate. Go very slowly, finesse, and pull straight outwards. Nearly there. And small little water lines. Well, I hope you learned something. I hope this inspires you to go out and try painting on your own. And as always, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. Please share my channel, click the notification bell, and subscribe if you haven't and this is your first video. And I appreciate all of your guys' support. It really makes what I'm doing seem worth it. One last little one. Alright. Now, go into my crimson. And we're just going to sign this one. And we have ourselves a finished painting. I hope you all enjoyed this one. I know I did.